when we think about poetry or classic rhymes, we just treat them as art.
Right, like words on a page.
Exactly.
Ah.
A pleasant rhythm, or maybe a nursery rhyme we teach to kids. We almost never look at a tiny four-line stanza and think, ah, yes, a highly functional, highly customizable psychological toolkit.
Yeah, we certainly don't expect a simple poem to act as a structured framework for managing anxiety. I mean, we expect literature to be expressive, but not necessarily utilitarian.
Totally.
And yet, some of the most enduring folklore actually serves a deeply practical, almost neurological purpose for the people participating in it.
Which brings us to the source material for today's deep dive. We are looking at a really comprehensive guide from Weddizer.
They're a massive wedding planning platform, yeah.
Right, and their recent deep dive focuses on what is arguably the most famous bridal custom in the English language. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, and a silver sixpence in her shoe.
It's universally recognizable.
It is. And whether you are planning a wedding, or you just love history, or you're fascinated by how cultures evolve, this deep dive is for you. Our mission today is to explore how this deeply superstitious 19th century poem transformed into a modern, highly personal emotional toolkit for couples today.
It's a huge shift.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand how couples are hacking this tradition today, we have to travel back to the strict societal rules of where this originated and why it was deemed absolutely necessary in the first place.
Right, so to find those origins, we drop right into the heart of Victorian-era England in the 19th century.
A very different time.
Completely. During this time, British brides didn't view this rhyme as a cute checklist for a party. They treated these customs as mandatory protocol.
Wow. Mandatory.
Yeah, the core purpose was highly functional. It was designed to bring literal good fortune and to offer spiritual and social protection as a woman underwent a massive life-altering legal transition.
Protection really is the operative word here. Reading through the Weddizer source material, this didn't read like a party planning guide at all. It read like a 19th century insurance policy.
That's a great way to put it.
You have to remember the context of Victorian marriage. A woman was often leaving her family home forever, entering into a legal doctrine called coverture, where her legal rights were essentially suspended.
They were transferred entirely to her husband.
Right. Plus, it was a period fraught with high mortality rates, financial instability, and social anxiety. I mean, she needed armor.
She needed a way to physically wear her support system. And what's fascinating here is that these items weren't just decorative. They were profound symbols meant to visually represent a bride support system and future security.
So it wasn't just about looking nice.
Not at all. Rather than looking at these items sequentially, it helps to group them by what they were actually designed to do.
Okay, makes sense.
So the first two items, something old and something borrowed, were essentially community anchors. They tethered the bride to her past. Something old represented continuity and family heritage. Something borrowed was even more specific. The guide notes that in Victorian times, you were supposed to borrow an item specifically from another woman who was already happily married.
It's essentially sympathetic magic.
Yes.
You are literally trying to rub the good luck off of a successful marriage and transfer it onto your own by wearing their physical garments.
That is the exact mechanism. You are borrowing her good fortune, and then you transition to the items meant to shield the bride and propel her into the future, which are something new, something blue, and the silver sixpence.
Let's break down the why behind those, because this is where the history gets really granular. We hear something blue, and we just think of, like, pastel garters.
Right, just a fashion choice?
But the historical weight of the color blue is massive. It wasn't just a pretty color. Blue dyes in early textile history were notoriously difficult to make color fast.
They faded quickly.
Exactly. So when you finally had a blue dye that didn't wash out, it became a literal symbol for steadfastness and loyalty. Add to that the deep religious iconography of the Virgin Mary, who is historically depicted wearing blue to symbolize purity.
So wearing blue was a visual broadcast of the bride's moral character to her new community.
Precisely. It was proof of her loyalty.
And the rhyme culminates in a very literal, very physical ward against evil. The silver sixpence in her shoe is the item most frequently dropped from modern recitations today.
Which is a shame.
It is, because to the Victorians, it was arguably the most critical part. Silver has this long history in European folklore of warding off evil
Like
spirits.
silver bullets or silver charm?
Exactly. Placing a specific silver coin in the left shoe was meant to stop malevolent spirits from traveling up from the ground to curse the womb.
Wow. And beyond just warding off evil spirits, a sixpence is a tangible piece of currency. It was a physical wish for financial independence and prosperity.
Which was vital at a time when a woman's financial security was entirely dependent on a successful marriage.
Right. You are literally dressing yourself in the emotional, spiritual, and financial support of your community. It's a wearable safety net. But, insular society, like Victorian England, was eventually going to clash with different cultural values.
Inevitably.
When this protective framework traveled across the Atlantic to America, the Weddizer source material highlights how those strict rules began to loosen and fracture.
And that fracture illustrates a fundamental difference in how British and American cultures process history.
How so?
Well, according to the Weddizer Guide, traditional British weddings still place a profound weight on ancestry. The tradition leans heavily into deep emotional connections tied to literal family heirlooms.
The history is the entire point of the exercise.
Right, the older the better. For something old, a British bride is encouraged to use a grandmother's veil or a vintage piece of family jewelry from a specific lineage.
Or even fabric cut from a matriarch's historical wedding dress, right?
Exactly. The purpose is to visually remind everyone in the room that this new marriage is merely the latest brick being laid on a massive ancestral foundation.
The couple is subservient to the history of the families merging.
Yes, which contrasts wildly with the American adaptations outlined in the source. American weddings took this ancient rhyme and warped it into an exercise in high customization.
It becomes less about ancestral duty and more about the couple's unique personalities, right?
Totally. It's about blending distinct cultural backgrounds. The Weddizer material gave incredible examples of this shift. Instead of a historical antique, an American bride might use a newly handwritten note from her parents as something old.
Oh, that's sweet.
And instead of tracking down an antique British sixpence, they might place a penny from the year they met in their shoe. The tradition shifts from a rigid community obligation to a highly curated personal narrative.
The focus moves away from superstitious appeasement and toward deliberate emotional storytelling.
Exactly. The American interpretation gives the couple permission to center themselves rather than their ancestors.
Okay, I see the appeal of that narrative shift. I really do. But I have to push back strongly on how this manifests with something new. The guide points out that modern couples fulfill this category by buying a new luxury designer gown, a brand new engagement ring setting, new bridal shoes, or even a personalized wedding perfume.
Right, a lot of bespoke items.
Let's call a spade here. Has something new just become a convenient excuse for modern consumerism? It feels like the wedding industry co-opting a quaint tradition to hand couples a blank check for a shopping spree.
Well, the wedding industry absolutely capitalizes on the tradition. There's no denying that. And it is incredibly easy to look at a bespoke luxury perfume and view it strictly through the lens of market manipulation.
Because it is.
But, and this is important, psychologists who study ritual point out that something new serves a vital psychological function called individuation.
So buying a $5,000 dress is individuation.
Think about the immense historical and social pressure of the other